Action.
Action.
Hi everybody, it's Chris, and before I get started on today's project, I wanted to talk a little bit about something I'm going to be doing here pretty soon. The Hart Par Oliver Collectors Association. This is their magazine. Alan's running the camera for me. Thanks, Alan. Alan says thank you. Oh, you're welcome. Anyways. So the news I want to share is that the club asked me, well, first I should go back to saying, like back when this was put out, my wife and I were the editors. Let's turn, and I think my picture should be in here somewhere. Itty bitty picture right there. There's me and Becky. We used to be the editors of the Hart Par Oliver Collector magazine, and oh look, I don't know, this is probably a correction from a previous issue. So yeah, I screwed up in there just like I do on videos. And but there is a lot of good information in here. So anyways, used to do this magazine, passed the torch on to Kevin and Robin Franklin. They eventually passed on to Greg and Lisa, who are doing it now. Davis is their last name. It'll be in the new magazines. And I was approached about writing tech tips. Used to be we had, and still do some, a gentleman by the name of John Schwiebert write our tech tips articles. John was one of those guys, he made his living being an Oliver mechanic. He's the guy that went to the dealer service meetings, went to Charles City for product introductions, remembered all that stuff, knew all the tips and tricks, and just was an invaluable source of information for the magazine. And John's getting up there in years and you know, getting a little harder for him to do that stuff. So wondered if I would pick up the torch, the mantle, and help carry on for John. And so I said, yes, I will. And so starting in the next issue, if I get around and write, which it should, it will be featuring the American series. And I plan on writing a few tech tips about the American series. I will have an article in the magazine. So there's still time if you join. It comes out every 2 months. So like this was July, August from 2010. That's how old this issue is. And it comes, so magazine 6 times a year, and it comes with being a member of the Hart Par Oliver Collectors Association. I don't remember what the dues are. They'll be on the website, www.hartparoliver.org. And you know, they might change by the time someone watches this video later on, so just look them up. But what you get with the dues, you get this magazine. You can do more club things. We have shows. We have a winter get together, a summer show, other functions here and there. You can join and just get the magazine. There's no commitment as far as having to go to club meetings or being a board member. We are always looking for more, but you know, if you just want to get all this great Oliver information, join up. No commitments other than just paying the dues to get the magazine. One of the great things I will say about this club is this tractor here is now in the Floyd County Museum. It belonged to Dean and Charlotte Barker, and after Dean's passing, they donated it to the museum. And the reason I bring up Dean is Dean was an engineer at Charles City and helped work on some of these tractors, including the 1655. I had kind of actually helped him find this one. It was in Canada. He always felt like a 1655 front wheel assist would be a neat tractor to have. And I said, well, there's a few in Canada, and I found one online, and he eventually was able to buy it and drove up there with a trucker to go pick it up. And but getting to know Dean was just one of the side benefits of being in this club. I never would have met someone like an Oliver engineer just you know, being in Michigan. But going to these shows and editing the magazine and writing all those articles, I got to know Dean, great guy, him and his wife Charlotte. As I said, Dean is no longer with us, unfortunately. And it's kind of sad the amount of knowledge and information that went with Dean. He was more than willing to share what he knew, any stories and history. So seeing him at a show was just always a thrill for me. Some people like basketball stars. I like Oliver guys. Engineers. I know some people, sometimes I cuss engineers too, but they have their own restrictions and stuff that are forced upon them by higher management. So it's not always their fault, but sometimes it is. So that's my pitch. the Hart-Parr Oliver Collectors Association. I'll put a link down in the description. Like I say, the next issue will be, let's see, there's January, February, March, April, May, June. So next issue will be July, August, which July is just around the corner. I'm surprised Greg hasn't gotten on me. Maybe I'm already too late. In which case, maybe it'll be September, October before you see me in the magazine. But one way or another, I'm gonna start writing for them. And so join today, and hopefully you'll get to see me in print, and at least I can go back and fix my errors there. Probably. All right, so what we're gonna do, I'm gonna set this down, is what's called, well, let me give you a little story on history on this tractor. This belongs to a good friend of mine from Iowa. Some of you might recognize the tractor or know the guy, very knowledgeable Oliver person. This was his dad's Super 88 diesel that he grew up with. And in 1996, he had front mount cultivators on this for a 6-row, and unfortunately got hit by a car, which broke the frame. So he spent some time finding another frame. He wanted one as close to the original casting date as he could get. He actually found one here in Michigan, less than 10 miles from me. Moved that back, got that back to Iowa, got in touch with a mechanic. He said, yep, bring it all over. And they decided at that time, as long as they're doing this, they're just gonna go through the tractor stem to stern. And the mechanic had pretty much done that. And from what I can see, good mechanic. I am not gonna disrespect anything he's done here. But for reasons beyond my understanding, and I'm not even gonna try to get into, he apparently lost interest in it, and it had been at his place for 17 years now. Like I say, that's between him and the owner of the tractor. Those are just the facts as they stand. So anyways, friend finally got the tractor back, as is basically. And so what I need to do is finish it up. The engine's been totally rebuilt. It ran in 2005. And so really there's not much to do there. Transmission entirely gone through, new bearings, using new old stock Oliver parts. This thing is as close to a factory tractor as probably could be done in modern times. So hydraulics, PTO, everything's done. It just needs to be put back together. But after sitting so long, what can happen with these American Bosch injection pumps is the plunger in the middle there is on a thin shaft, and when things turn in there, if the fuel gets gummed up, it can shear off really easy. And basically, if you put a wrench on one of these old diesels, and that does happen to be set up, even a wrench will break it off, any kind of turning. So before I turn this engine, just to be safe, you know, the injection pump's been gone through. I'm not expecting to find anything bad, but before we do that, because that plunger is not available anymore. So if it does break, we're gonna have to go to a machinist and get one custom made, and that's gonna be expensive. So we don't wanna do that. And when I mentioned John Schwiebert earlier, he had a Tech Tips article, didn't have a lot of pictures, it was a pretty brief one. It was after my stint as editor. But about doing what he called a screwdriver test. We take off, I'm gonna start with just this cover, but in his, he said, take off this cover, we'll take off the nut behind there so that the gear and the shaft are free from each other. Don't wanna turn them though. That's partially why, but you pull this cover off, and then underneath there is some linkage we'll have to pull out. And then once that's out, we can get a screwdriver up in there and check and make sure that those parts are free. And if you can wiggle them with a screwdriver, nothing's set up, you put this back together, put your gear back on, or tighten that all up and put the cover on, and you're good to go. So yeah, it's gonna be, it should be a fairly quick, but the guys out there, you know, you're starting up an old engine that hasn't been running a while, a quick and easy test, or it should be. This is actually the first time I've tried it, but help you, hopefully save you some money if you're trying to start an old diesel and you wanna make sure. One other option is you could convert this to a Rusamaster injection pump. You have to get the gears from a later, like a 1600, I think a 1550 would work as well. 1650, because the Bosch pump turns, I believe, at crankshaft speed, whereas the Master pump turns at camshaft speed, or at half the speed. So anyways, there is a speed difference between them. So you do have to switch the gear. You end up having to switch the cover because there needs to be room for that other gear. So there's a few things involved in switching the pumps, but all the parts were made. There's no customizing. You know, you can use off-the-shelf parts. Most of it's going to have to be used parts, but it can be done. You can convert them to a newer style. You can get new or get the lines off from a 1650 or a 1600, because a 1600 engine is basically the same as an 880, especially the diesel. Exact same displacement as a diesel on a 1600 as an 880. So the lines all go to the same place. So you could do the Master pump, pull the stuff off a 1600, put it on 880, although 1600 diesels aren't the easiest thing to find. So anyways, there are possibilities if your Bosch pump goes bad. The other thing would just be to find another one. There are ones out there. There's tractors being parted out on a regular basis. So, you know, don't give up on it if you really want to. You know, if it's Grandpa's tractor and you really want to see it run, there are ways of making things happen. So I think we're to the point of tearing into it. I'll have to grab some tools and we'll do that. Okay, well, first thing I'm going to do is get this off. You see down here there is an oil line and there is a pressure gallery, and so this part down in here fills up with oil. The governor back here and the plunger and stuff. So depending on how recently it's run, there may be oil behind here. So good to have at least a rag there. It should, it can drain back to the case too. So, you know, it's, chances are it's not gonna be full of oil, but you just want, helps to be ready. Oh look, it's gonna come off nice and easy. There's that cover. Get the gasket off. I'll probably reuse the gasket for now, but I'll get a fresh one before we're all said and done. So now what I need to do is, there's a spring pin here. I need to get a pair of needle nose pliers. I got to cut this wire off, and then you should be able to see it moving here. Whichever way. Yeah. Well, I can do it with the. Here's your throttle. You getting this back here, Alan?
Yep.
Okay. When you move the throttle, the spring pulls against this lever. Right now, it's full throttle. You pull on this, it shuts her off. It is a little sticky. And that's good to know. I've had them before where the governor gets sticky. There, she's freeing up. So it's a good thing we're doing this. See, when your shut off is attached to this block here, which pulls on this, it pulls against this stop, but that's what turns the fuel all the way off. But it's sticking again. This ain't necessarily the best sign, but like I said, good reason that we're doing it. Pull the clip, snip the wire, and then this control arm has an O-ring on it, and that's what seals the fuel from coming out of the head area down into the part that has your engine oil and getting into your engine oil. So that is also a potential, if you're getting fuel in the oil, that is a potential spot right there. So let me grab a couple tools and we'll go at her. First, you make a bunch of noise. Then you take the needle nose and pull that clip off. Take the side cutters and somehow or another find a spot to cut the wire. And of course, be careful about not ending up with stuff inside the injection pump, because that is bad. When Oliver was developing this diesel engine, one of their issues was trying to get everything to fit under their hoods that they were designing. And they were also going with another head design by Ricardo was the name of it. And I can probably throw a picture I've got here in the video of that design. And I have seen a couple of those engines over the years, but instead of the injectors coming in the side, this is the Lenovo head, an energy cell type head, where the energy cell's on the other side. The injector goes crossways, and a lot of the fuel goes in that energy cell, and it gets squeezed down in there, and it makes for better ignition. And so that's what makes these, for the time, a very good starting diesel. And even today, they can still be compared to some diesels out there. But a lot of the other competition, you had to have a gas engine that you fired up, a pony motor, or it's the same engine ran on gasoline for the case of the Internationals. You warmed it up on gas, and then the engine had enough heat in it to run on diesel. You switched it over. And Olivers were 100% diesel. You started them on diesel. If it's cold out, you run the manifold heater. Later on, they added block heaters as factory equipment, but at first they didn't even have that. And so that was one of their goals. They wanted a true 100% diesel engine, but they also wanted it to fit. On the 88, it did. The louvered side panels just missed this Bosch pump. On the 66 and 77, they had to make a bubble right about here in the side panels. And they duplicated the bubble on the other side. The other one isn't necessary, but it was just to balance out the looks. They were very concerned about the looks of the tractor that they were making. And I think they were, of the Ricardo, I think they were going to use like an inline pump. I'll have to look at that picture. You'll see it in the video when I put it in there. And that kind of leaned out. The injector, the lines were kind of up in here, and it really was going to take up a lot of space. I think it was a direct injection engine the way it looked, but it wasn't as good of a starting as this. And so those are the big reasons they went with the Lenovo design head. All right, so now we can take a couple screws out. And maybe I didn't get a big enough screwdriver. Man, these are tight. I mean, that is an aluminum body. All right, I'll get a better screwdriver. All right, let's see if this bigger screwdriver fits in the slot and get a better bite. Someone did not want this to come loose. Don't need to break or strip. Golly. Gee whiz. Well, that's just giving me the warm and fuzzies all over. Something I want to mention before I grab the next weapon. Alan was just asking and had a good question about Waukesha versus Oliver. I mean, it's Oliver diesel right on the manifold there. And when Oliver was designing this engine, yes, it was a Waukesha, but it was a joint effort. And Oliver did a lot of their own designing for it. And even though the 88 came out in 1947 and for the first couple of years was only gas, the engine was designed to be a diesel engine, and they adapted to gas instead of most going the other way, where taking a gas engine and trying to make it into a diesel. Diesels have higher compression ratios, and so there's more pressure on your rod bearings, your crankshaft and everything because of that. And so you need it built heavier. So Oliver knew that and figured the better way to go, rather than having two essentially completely different engines, was to build the diesel, or build an engine that can withstand the diesel. It was easier to get the gas going first, a lot simpler, a lot more experience and everything on that. And then once they got all their design hammered out, go with the Ricardo head or go with the Lenovo head, one way or another, they knew the engine with the bottom end was going to be able to hold up. And they even designed the head so that gas and diesel pistons were the same. So your compression ratio was all controlled by the head and not by the pistons. They really wanted to go for commonality of parts, and that would help them control costs. And so, yeah, they did it. This was even though the first ones were gas, they were designed to be a diesel engine, and Oliver did a lot of the engineering on it. A lot of people think Oliver never had their own engine. It was a joint effort between them and Waukesha, but there was a lot of features on this engine that were exclusively Oliver that their own engineers came up with. Okay, well, it never fails. And I had Alan turn the camera off, and I thought, I'm going to try one more time. And, well, things always happen when the camera's off. I swear I didn't cheat. I just tried again. I just didn't want to mess these screws up. They're special because they have a hole through them for the wire. They're the right length. They're the right screws. Everything's better when you just don't screw up. Sometimes that's not possible. Now there is going to be, this goes into a metering sleeve. I think I can get these off. Set them there. Now this should slide off this governor arm, but inside there ain't so much coming out that's you got to watch for is going in. This engages the metering sleeve in the head there, and if you don't get that re-engaged right, there's going to be no control over the throttle, and bad things are going to happen. There's an O-ring on this shaft, as I was mentioned earlier, so it should just, oh, yep, I just heard it. There should, yep, there's the O-ring right at the base of the plate. By that holding that plate, it squishes this O-ring on this surface right there. Dry up that diesel fuel before it gets into places it shouldn't be. But you got this peg here, and boy, it's hard to see up in there. I'm gonna have to grab my light. Where were we? We were like, I'm going to experiment with trying to get this baby back in there before I go too far. Because as I said, I'm not an injection pump man. I am, hey, take it to the injection pump shop, man. Let's see, that's there. You should feel it lock in. You should not be able to go that far. Maybe I've already done bad things. Maybe this video will never see the light of day. Oh, okay. Here's one thing. This turns independently of everything else. So that's why it's got to be... Oh, I need my light again. There's a slot in there. Okay, so it needs to be horizontal, like so. But does it need to be? No, that doesn't matter. Okay. That should line up right. There. It seated all the way in without any effort this time. So I do believe I got it right. Yep, I can only go that far. So, it turns out I can at least pretend I know what I'm doing. So, we slide that out carefully and put it somewhere nice and clean. And then we do the screwdriver-y thing. Now, that's going to be the challenge, is getting you a view in the hole. I brought a couple of screwdrivers here. I may have to, oh, nope, I can move it. I've just moved it up some, which is probably what happens. It meters up and down. Hopefully I didn't move it up too high, but I think we're good. I wish, not sure how much you can see. Hopefully I didn't mess anything up. But the metering sleeve that rod engages, it went up. Now to bring it back down. There, it's back down. I think we're safe. I think we're good. I can see liquid fuel in there, which is a good sign. It doesn't look varnishy. Here, I'll let it, no offense, but I'm gonna see if I can see the screen in the... Now, hopefully in post-production editing, I can blow that up. But what I did was where this little flipper thing here goes in a slot. When this shaft turns, that's offset, so it moves that up and down, which is moving the metering sleeve that controls how much fuel is going to go in. Let's see. Yeah, you move. This part out here doesn't move. This part moves. So as you do it, this can pivot so it stays parallel, but it moves up, and then I'm trying to keep it all parallel here because, you know, only so many fingers, but it moves it up and down. And that's what changes the amount of fuel. So I'm thinking we were having a little bit of sticking there, but the metering sleeve is moving, which I guess I was kind of doing with this anyways. So either I already broke it or it's good. But I think we are good. Oh yeah, that's the hole for the screw. Almost feels like there's like he put a little sealant on that. I might do the same thing, a little aviation sealant, not to seal the threads, but to keep the screws from coming loose. They're what holds everything in. That metering sleeve was sticking a little bit. So, right, wrong, or otherwise, I did just a little WD-40. It's got lubrication properties. I'll grab the skinny. So as I said before, I ran out of battery. I put a little WD in there, and boy, that made that was just starting to stick. She moves a lot easier now, so that's good. Once it gets filled up with fuel, I don't think WD is going to hurt anything. As far as lubricity, it should have more than diesel fuel. And it's not like I put a boatload in there. But I think that'll make a difference, because that just wasn't moving the rightest. So, but now it moves up and down much smoother. Well, once again, you know, about impossible to see in there with a camera and get a light in there. But before, I could move the sleeve up with the screwdriver and it would stay up. Now I move it up and it comes right back down. So it's moving much better. It was sticking. It's a good thing. I think it probably would have been all right. It wasn't sticking hard, but it wasn't, you know, wasn't perfect either. That freed it up, so that should make a difference. So now it's just a matter of lining this up and getting it in there. Well, having this one clocked about that far forward seemed to be the sweet spot for finding the groove. So, and then so there's that. Okay, got it back in. Maybe I should just show it, because, you know, I'm getting it down to a science. I've done it so many times. I will inspect one more time. My seal is in place on the shaft. Clock it right about there. Make sure this little doohickey here is level, parallel, whatever. Boy, got her right on there. Tip that down. Now, before I play with it anymore, I'm gonna put the screws back on. The cover, the retainer, the thing. I think I'll put a little aviation on gasket stuff on these threads, just to act as a Loctite. Between that and a wire, I don't think it's gonna go anywhere, but it is important for these to not come loose, because holding this plate in is what squeezes that O-ring, which seals it. So if it doesn't have pressure that way, fuel can start leaking around. So these screws aren't going to fall out once the cover's on, but they could come loose and get your fuel in. So that's why they wire them. And then another thing to watch for is the flat side of this plate faces down, the rounded side faces up. I'd gotten a little discombobulated on that and had to double check. Click. Come on. I use these handy dandy. I'm gonna try that viewer Don sent me. Oops. There, locked in. Well, that didn't go so well. Ow, son of a baba. Thing. It may be too complicated for the likes of me. Yeah, let's try this again. I'm probably doing it wrong. This is a neat tool, but I'm really starting to think I might be just as far ahead to use a pair of pliers. There, now you can all argue about how I did it wrong. Let's see, if the screw goes this way, this wire is keeping it from turning. And if this screw wants to come loose this way, this wire is keeping it from turning. So it should work, but you can discuss it amongst the comments section. And it's a good thing I got my tetanus shot up to date. Now, get the throttle rod in there. We've got our little clip. Now, whenever you do go to start your tractor up after doing all this, I highly recommend, I know I will have, a piece of cardboard to put over the intake just in case I got this wrong and it wants to take off RPMs wise. I can suffocate it. And then I'll also be near the fuel tank where I can shut off the fuel flow, because sometimes suffocating it will slow it down, but it doesn't always want to kill it. They can, a little bit of air and they want to keep going. Come on, baby. I guess I need to see the groove. Oh, come on, for the love of... Don't make me feed the swear jar again. I really don't want this going flying. Got it. Woo. Okay. That's all sealed back up. Hopefully. Don't you just love the confidence? Hopefully this is recording right, because the screen just went black. So I'm confident the injection pump is safe for cranking over. It'll still need bled out and everything, but we can proceed to the next step, taking off the valve cover, seeing what things look like under there. Well, I don't know how much I got off the other GoPro before it acted up. We're taking the valve cover off, and it is June 20th, and it is stinking hot and humid. Even in my shop where I'm out of the sun. And so I would just like to say, for all those people out there that complain all winter about it being winter, it is now my turn to complain about it being too stinking hot. And I wish you stick to your bed sheets and 100 mosquitoes buzz your ears all night long. And that you have a great day. Yeah, he even used the copper sealing water washers. So a second here, we'll have some visualization of what the inside of the engine looks like after sitting this long. I have, of course, hoping for good things. But sweating on this humid day, I know that there is such a thing as condensation. And so I better take this breather pipe off before I lift that cover. It'll probably destroy the gasket, but we can get more. Or we have more. Well, it's painted on both sides. That's a good sign. I'll end up getting new copper washers just to be safe. But for now, these will do. See if I can't pick them out with something. Now, normally these are reusable several times before they get smashed out too much. So they will be all right for what we're gonna do, but for the final assembly, if I know my friend, there it goes. Enough paint got in there, or that and a crushing effect. They got a little bit of a grip. Gently pry up. And hopefully the gasket separates from the head or cleanly from the cover. There. Oh yes, looks like it's gonna cleanly separate from the head. All right, place your bets. The suspense. There we go. Oh, that's what we want to see. That's what we want to see. I can still smell the paint. Let me find a safe place for this. And there's still a little oil on top of the head bolts down here on the end. But no rust. So this is good. This is good. I think I'll get an oil can, put a little down each rocker hole just because it's been so long since I rock and rolled. Yeah, new Welch plugs in the head. Now everything's looking good. The next thing will be I'll put a ratchet on the crankshaft and see about giving her a little turn. A little fresh engine oil in a can. Boop. Boop. Come on. A little bit down the lifter holes. Even if you used assembly lube on it, it has run, so that's all been mixed in with the oil. Okay, here we go. I hear and feel compression. Oh yeah, I'm definitely feeling compression. All right. I think we are safe to proceed with trying to fire her up. That will be in another video because I still got several things to hook up. I know some people will run engines with no coolant in them. I just can't bring myself to do that if at all possible. So see, I will get the valve cover back on, snug that up for now, and we'll need a fuel tank, a radiator, fuel. Probably might as well put the PTO shaft in. I guess I could leave that out for now, just to fire it up, but that might make things simpler when I get to painting. But then again, I can test the hydraulics and the PTO. And it don't take that long, so I'll probably do it. So needless to say, there are probably gonna be a couple more videos before we get to this running, but I really wanted to do a separate one on that screwdriver test for the injection pump. So if you were wondering how to do it, how to check that pump and make sure that sleeve is not seized up, just waiting to tear things apart the first time you crank it over, there you go. Like I was saying, I would have a board or something when you fire it up that first time after messing with that pump, just in case something didn't get back in the right place, where you can put a board over the intake here and cut off the airflow. And then from here, a guy could reach back under the fuel tank and turn off the fuel and starve it for fuel until it just dies if this doesn't kill it. So overall, good news. I think things are heading in the right direction. Ain't gonna have to tear the engine down to free everything up or anything crazy like that. Okay. We'll get this back on there for now. Just like so. So this will probably be an off again, on again project. As time allows. Wheat harvest is just around the corner. I'd like to get some time in on some of my projects, but now that I'm started on this, and I know it can probably fire up without too much more work, I will probably put more time into it. So I'm not gonna make any guarantees about how soon you'll be seeing it running, but it will. It will. So as always, I appreciate everybody watching, and we will see you in the next one. Come on. Don't make me get the swear jar out again.